So Avatar the Last Airbender live action TV series. I want to clarify that in this video I'm going to be doing my ideal version of how I think this show should be handled and the direction that they should take it in. I'm very much aware that Netflix are currently working on an adaptation and that unfortunately the original creators have left due to creative differences. So in this video I'll be talking about all the things that I'd like to do with the show, from the crew, certain cast members, and certain storylines and episodes, which I feel should be added or emphasized on. Now, I cannot stress this enough. I am not being super realistic in my choices. A lot of people who I think should be a part of the show are either way too expensive or way too occupied, or simply would not be interested in doing this kind of stuff. But I'm just going to pick those that I feel would bring this world to life in a way that is unique and creative, whilst also paying respect to the original show. These are essentially some of the things that I would want to do if I was the showrunner of this upcoming series. Now, a few essential things right off the bat. I am in agreement with most people on the internet when I say that most of the main cast should be aged up a few years to make certain things feel less weird and awkward in live action format. It will also mean that the kids will have a few more years of acting and martial arts experience. I think one of the most important things to address in terms of story is to find the appropriate balance of drawing from the original material and keeping the overall structure and tone, but to make sure that it is different enough to warrant a live action remake. I think the style of humor definitely needs to be maintained, but also refined slightly so it fits a little more appropriately in live action. In terms of episode structure, the traditional 10 one-hour episodes per season that Netflix seems to be running with may prove to be slightly problematic, as it would make the show feel too story-driven, and not give us enough of those sweet character-driven episodes that we know and love. I'm willing to bet that if they are doing 3 seasons of 10 one-hour episodes, characters like Jet and Haru would have a significantly smaller role, if not cut out completely. It would also be much harder to splice in characters like Hama or Zhong or Pian Dao. In fact, Book 3 would be a disaster to adapt if they run with the 10 episodes. So what I would propose is 15 40-minute or so episodes, or perhaps 20 half-hour episodes, so that certain storylines can stand on their own whilst also maintaining the longer form and more cinematic feeling. And of course, the runtimes for each episode can vary, and the finales can either be split into multiple parts or presented as one long feature-length event. Now, in terms of the talent behind the camera, I do want to talk about certain individuals who I feel could really enhance the quality of the show. Obviously, I would have liked the original creators as the showrunners and primary writers, so they would be my first choice. Now, the only other option for me would be none other than Dave Filoni, who is most famous for being the showrunner on Star Wars The Clone Wars, and of course has just started dipping his toes into live action with The Mandalorian. But most importantly, he actually directed a large number of the episodes for the original Avatar the Last Airbender series. So he is more than familiar with the world, and I think we all know that he would do it justice. Now, there are 2 choices that I have for the primary director of the show, aside from myself. Obviously, I would love to do it. But again, it would be almost impossible for Netflix to secure either of these guys. But within the context of this video, I'm ignoring the fact that we live in the real world. As long as they are alive, I can pick them. That said, Akira Kurosawa would have been perfect as the lead director anyway. So the first person I want to look at is Zhang Yimou. This is a Chinese director who has made many epic martial arts films, but the one I want to explore most is Hero, which in my opinion is the most beautiful film ever made. I've done a video on it before, so I'll link it in the description, but in my opinion, Hero is the closest we've ever gotten to a live action version of that Avatar world and that style, with the exception of the film that shall not be named, of course. In fact, I would say that the film's use of color and lighting and composition and music, seems very influential to the original series. There is so much diversity in terms of visuals, and I would say that like the Last Airbender series, Hero has a very static visual language, as the camera would often remain very static during the fight scenes as the action plays out. And part of what makes The Last Airbender so beautiful to look at is that there aren't tons of fancy camera moves. It has a very old school look and feel that Zhang Yimou is completely perfect for. The other director who I think would be brilliant for this is James Wan. He of course directed Aquaman, which is one of the most over-the-top and comic-accurate superhero films of recent memory. He also gave us Furious 7, so you know that amidst all the incredible action and explosions, he knows how to do genuine intimacy and emotion. He is very much a fan favorite, and I think someone we can all trust to do the source material justice. In terms of cinematographer, Christopher Doyle is a top choice for me. He shot the aforementioned Hero along with other Asian classics. The other choice, and someone who I think is also a big influence on the animated show's visual style, is Vittorio Storaro. Both cinematographers are masters of color and light, but in very different ways. And if doing The Last Airbender, you need striking colors and light. It's an absolute must. Let me show you just a few shots of Storaro's work, especially on The Last Emperor. I don't think I need to say more than that, really. In terms of music, you could just keep all the original pieces and themes from the same composer and have him work on it, but I think here is one of the few times where we can diverge a little from the original and do something slightly different. Now, the last thing I'd want is a mainstream, predictable Netflix-style score. I want one that really fits with the culture and the tone of the show and this world. I think Ryuichi Sakamoto would do a great job. He composed some of the music for The Last Emperor and The Revenant. However, if I was running this show, I would pick my personal favorite composer, Ramin Djawadi, who is most famous for Game of Thrones and Westworld, you could say. So you know that he has incredible range. This is someone who will write the most epic and unique character themes, whilst also staying true to the instruments and cultural characteristics, as we've seen from his work on the aforementioned shows. And the stuff that he did for the Shogun World part of Westworld shows he knows what he's doing. And for anyone who thinks a white composer shouldn't do Asian music, listen to Hans Zimmer and John Powell on Kung Fu Panda, then try and pipe up, I dare you. Last but not least, in terms of behind the camera talent, is the choreographer. This is without question one of the most important roles to fill, as we need someone truly talented and legendary to be able to bring the different bending styles to live action. Someone with decades worth of martial arts experience who will not give us a repeat of this. So there is no man on the planet more qualified than Yuen Woo-ping. This is someone who has choreographed hundreds of martial arts classics, but also some major Hollywood films such as The Matrix and Kill Bill. The heightened, over-the-top, gravity-defying style of these films worked perfectly for bending elements, and when you look at the work on Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon or The Grandmaster, you see that even with characters who aren't exactly super-powered, he is still able to make it feel very big and very epic and very precise. His work is so bold and uncompromising that at no point do you ever feel like bending in live action will feel inferior to animation because of the medium's limitations. That will not happen. Now, in terms of casting, I'm not going to bother going through everyone, especially since most people on the internet have seemingly agreed on a certain group of actors for the younger characters, and I think they're pretty good. So I'll be mainly focusing on the older characters, especially the ones that play into certain story ideas I want to include. That said, I think Ty Lee is the one younger character that I haven't seen anyone on the internet get completely right, and my choice for her is actually kind of incredibly obvious, but also a little bit outside the box at the same time. I think we can all agree that there are three main boxes the actor playing her needs to check. They need to have this incredible level of energy and excitement towards basically everything. They need to be able to move around and come with a rather refined level of fight, or more importantly, dance training. And lastly, they need to have a rather effortless and magnetic aura of celebrity about them. Essentially, they need to look convincing in shots like this. So for me, that's Lisa from Blackpink. I mean, that is the live action version of Ty Lee. It's uncanny. She looks the part, has the kind of energy, and can obviously dance. Also, one cool thing you can do if you got her is that in the final episode when Ty Lee joins the Kyoshi Warriors, you could have 3 of them be played by the other Blackpink members, and they'll be under such heavy makeup that it won't feel too distracting or call too much attention to itself. In terms of older characters, there are obviously some no-brainers. The Boulder has to be played by The Rock. Combustion Man has to be Batista, and Cabbage Man has to be Ken Jeong. Some other quick casting decisions that people haven't really brought up. I think Choi Woo-sik would be great as the Earth King. Remy Hee could play Han or any of the douchebag characters in the show. Lucy Liu, Ming-Na Wen, and Elodie Yung would all make great Junes. Ben Kingsley would be a great Guru Patik. Brian T probably should be General Zhao. Anthony Wong would make a great Long Feng. Daniel Day Kim is kind of obviously pretty perfect as Ozai. As for smaller cameos from other fan favorite actors, I think Constance Wu could come in as Judy for a little bit. I think Jet Li or Donnie Yen could voice Wan Shi Tong, and Chow Yun-fat should be the voice of the Lion Turtle, although I think he would also make a brilliant Zahir, and if we're talking Legend of Korra, I think Jessica Henwick would be perfect as Kuvira. Also, most importantly, if they decide to do the Ember Island Players episode, they need to, and I cannot stress this enough, they need to slap a bald cap on Awkwafina and make her play Aang. It would be brilliant. Now, within the context of this video, if I am the showrunner of this series and I could have my little showrunner cameo, I would either want to be one of the waiters in Iroh's tea shop, or I would want to be the birthday boy, who some could interpret as the guy who single-handedly sinks the entire Fire Nation fleet. In terms of the White Lotus, the internet seems to agree on Wes Studi as Paku, Ken Watanabe as Jong Jong, and Hiroyuki Sanada as Pian Dao, and I couldn't agree more. That said, every casting video I've watched seems to get stuck at Bumi, and just like Ty Lee, this was quite the no-brainer for me. Bumi needs to have a certain kind of duality about him. He needs to feel completely off the rails crazy, but also be incredibly wise. He needs to look like a harmless old man, but also be the most dangerous fighter in the room. That is literally Choi Min-sik. For anyone not familiar, he played the protagonist in Oldboy, and is also the main villain in I Saw the Devil, both great films that you need to check out. Also, in Oldboy, he goes from this to this in the same film, so you know he can get ripped. You can also age him up and down as much as you'd like, and although his English isn't terrific, I reckon he could get by. However, this is a cool little idea that I had, which is, for the character of Bumi, you could actually have someone create a different language specifically for this character, and he would only converse with Aang in this particular language, because you could kind of make up this idea that Bumi is so old that he speaks a different Earth Kingdom dialect to everyone else, so he wouldn't have to speak as much English, and I think that would be quite a cool character thing. Finally, in terms of Bumi, whoever ends up directing this show needs to shoot the escape from Omashu scene as one unbroken long take shot, as a reference to the iconic Old Boy hallway scene. Now, there are two big additions that I would make in terms of the story of the live action show. The first is to have a little bit more attention and screen time given to the history of the avatars. Now, I'm not saying go as far back as Avatar 1, but if they did, they'd definitely have to get Steven Yeun, of course. But I'd say that at least one episode dedicated to the three who came before Roku. And with each actor who plays a past avatar, I want a rather recognizable actor, someone who has a timeless and inherently cinematic quality about them, and it would actually be doable as they'd only have to come in for 1 or 2 episodes max. I think that Yang Chen and Kuruk are pretty obviously Michelle Yeoh and Jason Momoa. Now, I've heard tons of people saying Maggie Q should be Kyoshi, and although she definitely looks the part and has the fighting skills, I think she doesn't have that sort of ageless, all-encompassing feel that an Avatar actor needs to have. And so I went with Maggie Cheung instead. She is commonly considered one of the greatest actors of Hong Kong cinema right now. She's 56, but looks like she's in her late 30s, and for anyone wondering if she can do action, here is a clip of her in a Kyoshi-looking green outfit, wrecking shit like there's no tomorrow. Now, for Roku, I think it's very important that there has to be a certain kind of relationship between the Roku actor and the Sozin actor. I've seen Togo Igawa being thrown around for both of these characters, but I don't know anyone who would be super convincing as his rival. If we are to see the entire lives of these two, then we'd ideally need actors in their 40s or 50s so we can age them up and down as needed. So I went with a very iconic pairing, the Leo DiCaprio and Matt Damon of Hong Kong cinema. Literally, Tony Leung as Roku and Andy Lau as Sozin. The reason I made that comparison is because these two starred in a film called Infernal Affairs, which Martin Scorsese then remade as The Departed. with DiCaprio playing Tony Leung's character and Matt Damon playing Andy Lau's character. So you just know that they can be different sides of the same coin, very convincingly so. Also, they are both quite good at martial arts. I mean, just watch the scene of Tony Leung fighting, change those curtains from green to red, add a bit of bending effects, and you basically have the Sozin Roku fight in live action right there. The other addition I'd like to make are more Fire Nation flashbacks, primarily focused on Iroh and Zuko, with a little bit of Ozai as well. I want to see a younger Iroh and his relationship with his son Liu Ten. In fact, they should dedicate one episode to the Siege of Ba Sing Se and show us how Liu Ten dies and how Iroh suffers from that, because further exploration of that relationship will really inform the Iroh-Zuko stuff in the present day and make it even more emotional. I also really want more of young Zuko and his mum. Again, that's something that will make the Zuko and Azula relationship even more complex than it already is. So for Zuko's mum, I'd like Gemma Chan. I think she'd do a terrific job. For Iroh, I mean, it's gotta be Jackie Chan. I know people say he's too iconic and maybe too distracting, but come on, it's Jackie Chan. He does what he wants and he would be perfect. Especially since he can be aged up and down and also get ripped or fat if he needs to. I do really want to make Liu Ten an important character in that flashback episode, so we do need someone really good. Someone who feels like they were born to be Fire Lord and has that really great leadership charisma. Essentially the person young Zuko aspired to be, and the character that Zuko becomes at the end of the show, so to speak. So I have two choices. Jay Cho could play it in a more nonchalant and subtly badass way.
I'd like to see you try. You're a yuppie wimp, and I'm a martial arts expert who grew up penniless on the streets.
You grew up penisless on the streets.
Or you could get Henry Golding in for one episode as a more stoic version of the character, and he would do a really cool job, I think, and after Snake Eyes, I don't think he'll need heaps of martial arts training. So there you have it. Some of my ideas for a live-action Avatar the Last Airbender adaptation. I hope you enjoyed the video, and do comment on certain decisions that you do or don't agree with. Thank you very much as always for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.